Hi everyone, welcome back. Another rubbish tutorial on the advanced editor for Big Boxes Population 1. I'm currently using the Quest 3 headset natively, so my PC's packed away and I'm just doing everything from the headset because I'm very limited in regards to space at the moment. So we've been over basic teleports and we've been over the simple scoreboard. So next I want to show you the dreaded word that has people pulling their hair out and panicking like crazy when they hear it, and that is variables. Variables are essential for the amount of variety that you can have in your game rules, and I will try and explain what a variable is and what it does the best I can. I'm not an overly techie person, so there'll be certain terminology that I'm completely missing out on. You'll have to bear with me. I'm just going to give it you layman terms as I've learned it, as I've learned myself, and hopefully you can pick it up as relatively easy as I did. So I'll do a basic function that involves a variable. So first things first, I'm going to pull up my event editor menu. And I want to go to my variables tab, and there's absolutely nothing in there at the moment. So we need to add a variable. For now, just forget the word variable because that's what's throwing people off. Okay. I'm going to call it, what can I call it? I think I will call it button press. So what I'll do is I'll create a button, and every time somebody presses that button, we can count the number of times on a board. So I'll call it button press. And scope, this means who is this going to be affecting. So for the individual, it means every single player. And as you can see, it gives you a rough description of what it means. Each player in the game will get a copy of the variable. So it's a number variable because we are counting the amount of times this button's going to be pressed, okay? So it's going to each player, an individual. The other options are a team, so your entire team, and global, which means there's only one variable in the entire game that affects both teams. Okay, but we want the change of the variable to be affecting the player only. I don't want to press the button and then Joe Bloggs down the road has the counter work for him too. If he wants the button press number, he has to come and press the button himself. Same with team. I don't want to press the button and then my teammates get the reward as well. It's just me pressing the button, so it should be just me, the individual, that gets the variable. Okay, so the default value is 0. I haven't pressed that button yet. I haven't even created it yet. So the default value is 0. Okay, so when you start the game, it knows you haven't pressed that button once. Okay, so that variable has been created. So now we need to create the event, and I'll call that button count. You can call it whatever you want, guys. You know, the name really doesn't matter. It's just something that you can familiarize yourself with that relates to the actual event that you're writing. So I'm calling it button count. The trigger, right. So I want the trigger to be when I press a button. So in order for that to happen, let's create a button really quickly. I'm going to go with that one there. These menus are a little irritating at times. Let's rotate that round. Ignore this thing, guys. I'm going to delete it now. Put that like that. I mean, this is like taking way too much time to create a simple button. But I don't care. If you get bored of me doing this, guys, just skip the vid. I think I would have by now. There you go, that'll do. Simple button. At the moment, they are just blocks. Nothing happens. Nothing at all. I can just climb on them. They're just blocks. Okay. Let's give this a bit of texture, make it look pretty. As pretty as a wooden block can be, I suppose. There we go. Took its time. And let's texture these slightly different. There we go. So, how is it going to know when I press this? We need to put something there. And if you watched the teleport vid, you would have seen that we had teleports. So, we go to the build menu, over to this chess piece, this pawn over here. And we go to interactive. We find our trigger. A wonderful trigger. So this is what we're going to need to activate when we press the button. So this is going to become our interactive button. So I will set this now. So let me just rotate that around so it's looking pretty. Yeah, that'll do. Lovely jubbly. I'm going to make that a little brighter. There we go. Nice bright green. Can't miss it. Wonderful. And we'll call that a hand trigger. So that's going to be activated with our hands. Now, triggers are normally activated with the player's head. So it activates when your head passes into the trigger. So to make it hand only, you need to check the box that says hand trigger. You have other options here, such as only living players, self-explanatory. If you only want living players to be able to do this, then select that. If you don't care whether dead people want to press this button, you keep that unchecked. So I'm going to give this a trigger ID. I'm going to call that number 1. And I'm going to call this one over here number 2. Let's delete this out of the way. That's trigger number 1. That's trigger number 2. I think I'll make 2 a different color, just so you can differentiate the 2. There we go. 1 green, 1 red. Two simple buttons, guys. Okay. Now, let's create that event. Button count. So what I'm saying is the trigger is going to be the same as the teleports. The trigger is going to be a trigger function because we are activating a trigger. So we go down to trigger function and we'll select the triggering player. If you wanted to have this as a like a destruction button. You could press that trigger, and we could select all players, and we could do something really spiteful, like one that I can't find. Oh, I can't find it. Damage player. So if I press that, we can damage the player, and we can dictate how much damage we want to cause them. Say 55. So now if I press this, everybody playing the game gets 55 damage. But we're not going to do that. We're going to select the person that is triggering this. So when the person presses that, at the moment nothing's going to happen because we haven't said what we want to happen. Trigger 1, I want this to give us a button press. I want this trigger 2 to take one button press away. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll have 6 displayed on the board here. 5, 4, 3, 2. That would be displayed as 2 on the board because it's going to say how many times I've turned it on or off, or how many times I've pressed the button effectively. So, condition. This was trigger number 1. If the event, the actual thing that's happening, has the trigger ID of number 1, we will add variable. Remember we created that variable? Here it is, called button press. The value at the moment is 0. So you haven't got any button presses, okay? On this event, when we press that trigger number 1, we're going to add 1 to that variable. So every time I press that, 1 gets added. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I will show you on the scoreboard in a moment. We're going to add an else condition. Okay? Where we've said if the trigger equals number 1, this one here, it's going to add 1 to that variable. What if we want to take 1 away? So what we need to do is else. We're going to say if the event has the trigger ID of number 2, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take 1 away. So you don't get the option on here of remove variable or deduct variable. You still got to click add variable, but the value would be a negative value. So in -1. Okay, so we got +1, -1. So that is the event ready for this to happen. Can you remember what we need to do, what I did forget to do when I done the teleports? We got to go to the edit menu on the trigger to tell the trigger what to do. Button count. If it's trigger 1, it'll do one thing. If it's trigger 2, it'll do another. As long as it has that function there. Same with that one. Button count. Okay. The debounce time, guys, is basically, I can't do this in quick succession. Okay. So when I activate it, it'll be a full second before I can activate it again. Okay. So I can't just stand there doing this. It'll be 1. I can if I wanted to. If I put that all the way down there, I can, as many times as my hand goes in to that, it will come up on the scoreboard. So we have the event created, we have our buttons created, and we've told the buttons, the trigger, sorry, what we wanted to do. So now we just need to put a little board up here to show it working. And when I say a little board, I didn't mean a huge, massive board. I'm just going to put a little board that's easy to see, like that. I'm actually going to move that back slightly. There we go. Right, so guys, when I test this now, you will see... Oh, again, I've missed... When we test this now, I need to tell the scoreboard what it's looking for. We don't want to look at kills. We don't want it to show kills. We don't want any of these. We need it to show us how many times or how many button presses we got. So we make sure that we select button presses. We will always update the value, and we will call it button press. Button press. Right, so I'm going to test the game, guys. We're going to come up to the triggers, and I'm going to pop a couple on. I'm going to take a couple off, and you will see this changing as I do it, okay? So the proof will be in the pudding. I'll take those bots off because they will be a nuisance. Test that game. Right, let's go check this out. Right, you ready for this? As you can see, I forgot to make my triggers visible. It's a simple case of going back into the editor and ticking the box that says visible. Okay, but they are here. You just can't see them at the moment. So if you watch, it is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll take one away. 4, 3, 4. It's as simple as that, guys. Every time my hand passes into that trigger, it's adding one, and every time it goes into this trigger, it's taking one away. Okay, so that is a simple variable, and what it does and how you can track it on a board. It's very useful to put a board up when you create a variable, just so you can see that it's working. It's one way to know it's doing what you're doing and adding the numbers that you needed to add. Go in and out of this trigger multiple times, squeezing as fast as you can. It's just going to keep dotting up, and then we can take them all away. I'm actually taking them away quicker than you can do the calculations. 4 more. 3, 2, 1, 0. There we go. And we go minus as well if we want. Okay, so that's your simple variables, guys. You can use the variables for all different things in the game.